ما شاء الله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ خلائق أجمعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا وشفيع المذنبين جد الحسنين وأبي الزهراء وأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين المعصومين المنتخبين المنتجبين الغر الميامين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الدائمة من أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى There's a man called Michael Hart, and he did a research with some of his friends upon who should be one of the top of 100 personalities, the most profound personalities of the world. And he made a list of 100 persons, 100 people. And it wasn't, the person who was on the first of that list, you'll be surprised, was not somebody like Mahatma Gandhi or, for example, Aristotle or, for example, Alexander the Great or anybody that comes to your mind. It was nobody other than Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Who came on top of that list on number one. Somebody asked him, he said, you're a Christian, why didn't you think of Jesus Christ to be one of the ones who at least come on the second one, or like, for example, on the third? So he says that I'm a Christian and I love Jesus Christ and I wanted him to be on the, on number one. But the thing is that I'm a fair man. What I had done is that I had made some categories and I divided the people amongst those categories, and I wanted to fit each one of them in those categories. So at the end of the day, when I started fitting in all of these people, I came to a conclusion that Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam can only be the person who can come on this list number one. And the reason is, he says that when I looked at Jesus Christ on one side and Muhammad and Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam on the other side, I found that the categories that I had made, Jesus Christ was not a father, but Muhammad and Mustafa was a father. Jesus Christ was not a statesman, but Muhammad and Mustafa was a statesman. Jesus Christ was not a warrior, and Muhammad and Mustafa was a warrior. And so many of these qualities and the things that existed in Muhammad and Mustafa did not exist in Jesus Christ. So I could not help it, and it had to be Muhammad and Mustafa to be on number one. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salawat ala Muhammad. So see, what were the qualities? Even when somebody has these qualities and you do not express them and you do not promote these qualities, it is impossible to propagate and impossible to have that kind of a significant impact upon the world. And not just the world, even in the society that you live around. I'll narrate a little story for the young people. And you might have heard about this story many times, but let me say this once more, even if it is in your mind, because there's a point that I want to raise from this story. You see, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Alhamdulillah. Every single day he used to go through a street, and there used to be a lady who would throw the garbage upon his head. Allahu Akbar. Every single day, Rasulullah walks through the street, and the lady throws garbage upon the head of Rasulullah, rahmatul lil alameen. Now, one day, this lady becomes sick, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam decides to pay her a visit to find out if she's sick. And once this lady finds out that the man that I throw the garbage upon every single day, I do not, have a holiday. I do not even go for weekends. Every day I make sure that I throw the garbage upon his head. And this young man is here to see me and to find out that I'm sick. He's found out, and now he's come to inquire about me, about my health. She was so impressed. And that it is very hard when you're a senior citizen, above 60 or above 70, it's very hard to change your views. But this puts such a strong impact on the mind of that old lady that she decides to change her religion. And she says that, that's the real religion that I must have been following. So I was on the wrong track. You are the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the point that I want to raise is that I said the Prophet used to go from that street every single day. Well, there were other streets as well. He could have gone from the other street. Other ways, he could have done that. But the Prophet wanted to raise a point. And this was the point. That the Prophet has come to make other people change their ways. Not his. So that's the point. That once you... And there are other things in it as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Once you look at his character, and the hadith that comes from, hadith al-Qudsi that comes from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, where he says that Allah says, Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbuh. Anybody who recognizes himself recognizes his Lord. So who else would recognize himself more than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa sallam? He recognizes himself that he is, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his status, his caliber is unmatched. No human being or no creation or anybody in the whole universe can match his caliber. He knows that. But you will not find a single point when you would find a little bit of arrogance in the character of Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, you find that it is just the opposite of arrogance. When he goes to see that old lady, and throughout his year, throughout the time when he was propagating Islam, you would find just the opposite of Iblis. And when Iblis was there, when Allah commanded him, bow down in front of Adam, and he refused, and he said, I will not do it. Allah asked him why, and he said, Ana khayrun minhu, I am better than Adam. Khalaqtahu min teen wa khalaqtani min nar. You have created me from fire, and you have created him from earth. So how can I be not superior than him? So you see, that is arrogance. Thinking yourself to be better than someone else. That's what makes you Iblis. That turns you into Iblis. That even when somebody is better than somebody. For example, somebody prays 5 times a day. Somebody, anybody who's like really pious and knows himself that I am pious, I stay away from all of the harams and I do all of the wajibat. I act upon as instructed by Ahlul Bayt, as instructed by Rasulullah, as instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the book, for example, in the Quran. I follow all of those guidelines. And my belief is all right. So the other person, I see him, he's not praying 5 times a day. I am better than him. And that thought, as soon as that comes in your mind, that's the time when you say, you should sit down and think that, that's arrogance. You never know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might forgive him in a second. And he might, the salats that he has missed, he might, start reciting those salats, completing all those qaza salats, and Allah forgives him and elevates his status more than anybody can ever imagine. So we should never, never, ever think ourselves to be better than any other mu'min, especially the mu'mineen. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And we should always have three things in us. Number one, the opposite of arrogance, which is humbleness. We should always be humble. Number two, we should have knowledge. Knowledge about things. Knowledge about your religion. When somebody walks up to you and asks you, you're a Muslim, why do you believe in one God? Why do you say that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last prophet? Why do you say Ali ibn Abi Talib should be your first Imam? You should have those answers to you with yourself, with logic. So the other thing that you must have with you is knowledge. And the third thing that you must have in yourself is kindness. Whenever you speak to somebody, you should have that kindness inside yourself. The compassionism must exist all the time amongst you. So the thing is, when you speak to others, they will see your compassion. They'll feel that you're a kind person. They'll feel that you're a nice person. That's the first thing that you must have in yourself. Even if you have a knowledge, for example, I'll explain even further what I'm trying to say. You've got all the knowledge. But let me put it straight. If the person is rude and you say, are you crazy? You don't know the simple things about, like if you put 2 and 2 together, it is 4, and you do not know this. You don't know how to do the wuzu, for example. You see somebody is doing the wuzu, and you say, I've seen people, they start insulting others. That's not the way. I'll tell you a little story. There was an old man, and he's doing a wudu. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Imam Hussain alayhi salam are watching him. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. They watch him do the wuzu, and the wuzu is not right. So what do? They walk up to him and talk to the old man, and they say, oh Sheikh, we two brothers have seen you doing the wuzu. Now can you watch us doing the wuzu as well? And if there's something wrong in it, please correct us. And they start doing the wuzu, and obviously Hussain alayhi salam, their wuzu cannot be wrong. The old man understands. So you see, that's the way to propagate. And he says, you are the sons of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now you have taught me how to do the wuzu. Your wuzu is correct and mine is wrong. So that's the way to preach. That's the way to come forward. And when I was talking about arrogance, for example, that is something that is a killer. It is like termite. It is something that kills your mind. It kills your soul. It brings your soul down to the dungeons, even if you're pious or anything. I'll relate a little story to this thing that I want to really enforce upon, arrogance. There was a man from Syria, and the times were of the times of Hassan Mushtaba alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And during those days, there was a lot of propaganda that was going on from Banu Umayyah against Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, especially Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and his sons Imam Hassan Mushtaba and Imam Hussain alayhi salam. It was the propaganda intensity was so much that you can imagine when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was martyred in the sajda, somebody walked up and he says, oh, Ali was killed while praying salah. So does that mean that Ali also used to pray salah? So that was the intensity of the propaganda that was driven. It was a kind of like every kind of single day when people were asked, they were given money to go and talk against Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So you have to keep that in mind. A man comes from Syria and he walks into Medina. He's on a horseback and he asks people, he says, do you know where Hassan Mushtaba alayhi salam is? Who is Hassan? And it was a coincidence that Hassan Mushtaba alayhi salam was very nearby. The man points and he says, that's Hassan Mushtaba alayhi salam. As soon as he finds out that that's Hassan Mushtaba, this man starts abusing Imam Hassan Mushtaba. Astaghfirullah min zalim. He starts abusing him, using bad words. And what was the reaction of Imam Hassan Mushtaba? Well, think of it your way. When if somebody starts abusing you, what would you do? using bad words. I've known people, when they say, Maulana, somebody was abusing me, I got into an argument, I got into a fight with him. The reason is that he was abusing my mother, he was abusing my father, my sister, or whoever. And he used such a bad word. I couldn't resist it. I had to react. Now this is what your Imam did. After listening to all of those bad words, you know what your Imam did? He smiled at him. And he says, you look like you've come from a faraway place. So why don't you come down from the horseback and let's talk. You look tired. You look exhausted. So I'll offer you my house. I'll open my doors of my house for you. I'm inviting you to be my guest and stay with me for 3 days. He's smiling. And he's talking to him like that. Now, this guy is an enemy of Ahlul Bayt. Who would open the door of his house to an enemy? It's only Hassan and Mushtaba alayhi salam. And he instructs all of his servants and slaves. He says, you have to take a special care of this man who's come to visit us as a guest. And you must serve him. And because it was the order of Imam Hassan and Mushtaba alayhi salam, all throughout these 3 days, during the night and day, everybody made sure that this man was taken care of. And after the 3 days were over, this man comes and he throws himself upon the feet of Imam Hassan and Mushtaba alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And he says that now I am convinced that you are the true Imam. And all the things that we have been told are all lies. And Allah knows who to make the Nabi, or Rasul, a prophet, or the Imam. Salawat Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the Imam did not display arrogance or anger or anything of that sort. So it is the character which is the most important thing when we are dealing with different people around us. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, He says, surely ya Rasulullah, you are of the most noblest of characters. And you have to keep in mind, it's not a man who's talking about Rasulullah. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When He talks about Rasulullah, He says, you have the most noblest character. You see, if I, for example, if you talk to a little child or a kid, when he sees somebody around and he says, I like that person, he's a very nice person. A child has a different way of looking at things. And as you grow up, as the child grows up, and somebody who's knowledgeable, I'm trying to explain that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who says, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad, innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. You are the one of the most noblest characters. So when Allah is praising Rasulullah, you can imagine the character that he had. And once we follow Rasulullah, that's what is called sunnah. We are supposed to follow each and every step that Muhammad alayhi salam took. When they smiled, the way they walked, the way they ate, the way they behaved in the society. That is what is expected from us. Salawat Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ya Ali. Now, Muhammad wa ala Muhammad alayhi salam have always been a role model for the humanity. Any aspect of their life that you look at can be, praised and followed. And anybody who decides to follow any of those aspects of life will become successful, not just in the life hereafter, but also in this life. Allah did not create this Sharia for us to suffer. It's not like that. It's not like when Allah wanted us to suffer, so He says, pray 5 times a day, do this and don't do that, and all of those things. There is a philosophy behind each and every command that was descended upon us through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And once you understand that philosophy and you start following those things, you will find the spirituality that you gain from this thing. When we go to the majalis, for example, it is said that if somebody sheds, there's a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if somebody sheds one tear upon Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, all of his sins are forgiven. What is it that Imam Hussain alayhi salam did? What was the character of Imam Hussain alayhi salam? Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It is said that the people of this magnitude, the way that the people dealt with Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, these Ahlul Bayt, these infallibles, was supposed to be treated in the best possible way, that is best possible way, but the opposite happened. Ayatullah Bahrul Ulum, ہمارے علماء میں سے بہت عظیم عالم دین ہیں، سید بحر العلوم، انہوں نے فرمایا، کہا کہ میں نے ایک دن امام حسین علیہ السلام سید الشہداء کو اپنی خواب میں دیکھا، اور میں نے یہ دیکھا کہ سر سے پاؤں تک امام حسین علیہ السلام زخموں سے چور ہیں، سر سے پاؤں تک خون ہی خون ہے، کوئی جگہ ایسی نہیں ہے کہ جہاں پر زخم دکھائی نہ دے رہا ہو۔ سید کہتے ہیں کہ میں تل ملا کے رہ گیا، میں نے کہا کہ یا ابا عبداللہ، آپ کو جس حال میں دیکھ رہا ہوں مجھ سے برداشت نہیں ہو رہا، میں کچھ کر نہیں پا رہا، آپ کے اوپر اتنے زخم۔ آپ کو معلوم ہے نا، امام زین العابدین علیہ السلام سے جب کسی نے پوچھا تھا کہ آپ کے بابا کے اوپر بدن مبارک پر کتنے زخم تھے، تو انہوں نے فرمایا تھا اپنی انگوٹھی کا اشارہ کر کے کہ اس کے جو نگینے کی طرف اتنی جگہ بھی نہیں رہ گئی تھی کہ اس کے اوپر زخم نہ ہو میرے بابا کے بدن مبارک پر، اتنے زخم تھے۔ اب سید فرماتے ہیں، سید بحر العلوم، کہ میں تکلیف میں ہوں، اور میں نے کہا کہ یا ابا عبداللہ، کوئی ایک ایسا عمل ہے جو میں کر سکوں، میں کیا کروں کہ آپ کی یہ زخم بہتر ہو سکے؟ امام نے فرمایا کہ اے سید، تمہیں معلوم ہے کہ جب تم لوگ روتے ہو مجھ پر تو یہ میرے زخم مرہم بن کے، تمہارے آنسو میرے زخموں پر مرہم بن جاتے ہیں، فرمایا میرے لیے رویا کرو۔ یہ جب سنا، سید خواب سے اٹھے، باہر نکلے اور اعلان کیا، لوگوں کو جمع کیا اور کہا کہ 10 دن کے لیے میں اپنے گھر پہ عشرہ امام حسین رکھ رہا ہوں۔ ہر روز جب مجلس برپا ہوتی تھی، سید مجلس میں کھڑے ہوتے درمیان میں اور بلند آواز میں کہتے کہ رویا کرو، میرے مولا نے حکم دیا ہے، اب عبداللہ حسین نے کہا ہے کہ رویا کرو، کیوں نہیں تم رو رہے؟ کہا میں نے اس حالت میں اپنے مولا حسین کو دیکھا کہ ان کے بدن مبارک پہ ایک جگہ باقی نہیں تھی جس پر زخم نہ ہو۔ یہ کہتے جاتے، روتے جاتے، امامے کو زمین پر رکھتے اور اپنے سر کو بار بار پیٹتے۔ جب 10 دن گزر گئے تو سید نے خواب میں پھر امام حسین علیہ السلام کی زیارت کی، دیکھا زیادہ تر زخم بھر چکے ہیں، لیکن 3 ایسے نمایاں زخم ہیں جو بھرے نہیں ہیں۔ آگے بڑھے اور کہا مولا یہ کون سے 3 زخم ہیں؟ کہا سید جاننا چاہتے ہو؟ کہا یہ جو 3 میرے زخم ہیں نا، یہ قیامت تک جن و انس مل کے اگر روتے رہے نا تو یہ 3 زخم نہیں بھریں گے۔ ایک جو میرے کندھے پہ زخم دیکھ رہے ہو، یہ میری ماں زہرا کا زخم ہے کہ جب جلتا ہوا دروازہ میری ماں زہرا پہ گرا نا، سید یہ زخم میرا کبھی نہیں بھرے گا۔ کہا اور یہ جو میرے بازو کی طرف دیکھ رہے ہو، یہ زخم میرے ابوالفضل العباس کا کٹے ہوئے شانوں کا زخم ہے، اور جو میرے سینے پہ جو تم دیکھ رہے ہو، یہ میرے علی اکبر جوان بیٹے کو جو برچھی لگی تھی نا، یہ وہ زخم ہے۔ یہ مولا نے فرمایا اور کہا کہ یہ زخم کبھی نہ بھر پائیں گے۔ پھر فرمایا سید کاش تم روز عاشورہ ہوتے اور تم دیکھتے کہ تمہارے مظلوم پیاسے امام اپنے علی اصغر کے لیے کیسے پانی مانگ رہے تھے۔ سَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا يَنقَلِبُونَ عَلَىٰ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ۔ دعا کروانی ہے۔ اللہم انی اسألک بحق فاطمہ وابیہا وبعلہا وبنیہا وسر المستودع فیہا اقضی حاجتی۔ یا اللہ تجھے واسطہ محمد و آل محمد کی مظلومیت کا، تجھے واسطہ امام حسین علیہ السلام کی مظلومیت کا، یہ جو مرحومین جنہوں نے مجلس کرائی ہے، خدا ان کی مغفرت فرما۔ یا اللہ تمام حاضرین محفل اور جو مومنین و مومنات جن کے لیے کو دعا کرنے والا نہیں، سب کے مرحومین کی مغفرت فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمیں ہمارے تمام گناہان کبیرہ اور صغیرہ معاف فرما، اور آئندہ ہر قسم کے گناہ سے بچنے کی توفیق عطا فرما۔ یا اللہ واجبات پہ عمل کرنے کے، حرام سے بچنے کی توفیق عطا تو نے فرمائی۔ یا اللہ تجھے واسطہ اہل بیت علیہ السلام کے اس دین پر بھی صحیح معنوں میں چلنے اور اس کو سمجھنے کی توفیق عطا فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمارے بچوں کو، خصوصاً ہمارے ینگ لوگوں کو، ینگسٹرز کو، یا اللہ دین اہل بیت صحیح معنوں میں سمجھنے اور چلنے، اس پر چلنے کی توفیق عطا فرما۔ ہر قسم کے شر شیطان سے محفوظ فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمارے گھروں کو، ہم لوگوں کو اور ہمارے بچوں کو خصوصاً، یا اللہ ہر قسم کے پروپیگنڈا اور ہر قسم کی شر شیطان اور جن و انس سے اور حادثات سے، انجانی مصیبتوں سے بھی محفوظ فرما۔ یا اللہ دین و دنیا کی سعادت عطا فرما۔ یا اللہ ان کو، یا اللہ بحق اہل البیت علیہ السلام جو تنگ دست ان کے رزق میں وسعت عطا فرما، جو پریشان حال ہیں، اگر کوئی پریشان ہے خدا تو بہتر جانتا ہے، ان کی جو پریشانی ان کو دور فرما، جو مریض ہیں ان کو شفا کامل و عاجلہ عطا فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمارے علماء حق کی حفاظت فرما۔ یا اللہ تجھے واسطہ محمد و آل محمد کی عظمت کا، عزاداروں اور عزاداریوں کی پاکستان میں، دنیا بھر میں جہاں بھی پریشان ہیں، یا اللہ جو عزادار ہیں ان کی حفاظت فرما۔ یا اللہ دشمنان اہل بیت اگر لائق کے ہدایت نہیں ہے تو ان کو نیست و نابود فرما، جو دنیا سے چلیں گے ان کی عذاب میں مزید اضافہ فرما۔ یا اللہ تجھے واسطہ محمد و آل محمد کی عظمت کا، ہمارے امام کو کہ ہمیں سچی معرفت اور محبت عطا فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمارے امام کو ہم سے راضی فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمیں ان کے آوان و انصار میں شامل فرما۔ یا اللہ ہمارے بچوں کے، ینگسٹرز کے اور ہم لوگوں کے دلوں کو نور اہل بیت سے منور فرما۔ یا اللہ بحق اہل بیت علیہ السلام امام زمان علیہ السلام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما۔ بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔